Tyler from Aspire Sports. Today's video, I'm going to be doing my 2022 fantasy football mock draft for the first round. Now, I know a lot of people out there are probably thinking to themselves right now, wow, this is pretty early to be doing this kind of stuff. Sure. But you have a lot of people right now who might not be making the playoffs. Their fantasy football season is over. They're already looking forward towards next year because they're fantasy football fanatics like myself. So let's take a look at who are going to be the top picks for next year. If you enjoy this video at any time, do me a big favor, hit that thumbs up as it will get to more people, help grow the channel. And also, I post new content like this every single week. I'll be posting it all throughout the winter months. So hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on all the latest content. So with that being said, let's start with the first overall pick. The first overall pick should be Jonathan Taylor. I think he's going to be the consensus #1 pick next year, as long as he makes it through the season healthy. And if he continues to produce at the rate that he's producing, he'll most likely be the top pick. Now, some people might say, what about Derrick Henry? For me, Jonathan Taylor is younger. He plays on an offense that features him. They run the football when it gets close, and he has more receiving upside than Derrick Henry. So for that reason, I'd rather go Jonathan Taylor over Derrick Henry. So Jonathan Taylor, I believe, is going to be the first overall pick in 2022. Coming in at #2 is going to be Derrick Henry. And I want to stress this. I don't know if I did it early in the video. This is not my rankings. These are not my rankings. This is what I think the consensus is going to be in the summertime. So Derrick Henry coming in at #2. I've already seen people say they'd rather take him over Jonathan Taylor, and I think that's pure craziness. But I think this year, your consensus #1 and 2 are going to be Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, absolute beast. We've seen him in the past, put up ridiculous amount of numbers. This season was putting up ridiculous numbers. Right now, he's RB #6, despite not playing since week 8. He's crazy. But there are some red flags, and that's why me personally, I will not be taking Derrick Henry at #2. The big red flag, health. And I know that he really hasn't been banged up prior to in his career since this year, but he's going to be 28 heading into next season. The dude has had a massive amount of touches over the past few years now. This past season was on pace for 500 touches. This was bound to happen. I don't care if he's Derrick Henry. There's no way a player is going to survive a season at the running back position, the most brutal position in football, and survive the fantasy football season, survive the NFL season with 500 plus touches. That's not going to happen. I know he's a volume guy, and there's a ton of volume there with Derrick Henry, but there's no way I'm taking him at #2. I think a lot of people are going to, just because of his season prior to the injury. So that's why I think Derrick Henry is going to be taken as the second player off the board. Coming in at the 3rd overall pick is going to be Austin Eckler. Now, I do think that there's quite a few different players that could be taken here. I think that Austin Eckler, Cooper Kupp, Joe Mixon, possibly Alva Kamara if he comes back and has a really good, solid rest of the season here. So there's quite a few different players, maybe even Naji Harris. But I think as of right now, Austin Eckler will probably be that guy. Now, that can change definitely depending on how the season finishes. But Austin Eckler has been really solid this season. He has a really high receiving floor in this offense. This offense is really solid. So I think that Austin Eckler would be the 3rd overall pick, especially in your PPR leagues. Coming in at #4 is going to be Joe Mixon. And these guys, once again, are interchangeable. If you want to take Joe Mixon at 3, totally go for it. Austin Eckler, I think, is a really solid play there as well. So whoever you want to go, you go. Joe Mixon this year, we're finally seeing his potential in this offense. Next year with Jamar Chase, another year under his belt. Joe Burrow, another year removed from the injury. This offense is probably going to get even better with him. And I think it's been like 9 straight games with a touchdown for Joe Mixon now. So he's obviously a threat to score each and every single week. That's why Joe Mixon is going to be a top 5 pick next year. Coming in at #5 is going to be Cooper Kupp. Now, you might have some people who say this is too high. Other people might say it's too low. And I think that there's a real case that he could be taken at the 3rd overall spot in fantasy football. Right now, he's on pace to score more points than Jonathan Taylor in your full point PPR league. Right now, he's on pace to have over 140 receptions this season. That's the difference between him, Devontae Adams, and Kyrie Kill are the receptions. So if you're in a full point PPR league, I would feel totally fine taking Cooper Kupp very early, because what's stopping him from having a similar season? Now, obviously, maybe not to this caliber, but close to it next year. We've already seen him produce really solid numbers, top 5 numbers back in 2019 with Jared Goff. Now he has Matthew Stafford. This offense next year isn't going to be a whole lot different next season. So what is really stopping him from having a really good season next year as well? Nothing. And also, wide receivers tend to be a little bit more safer in fantasy football than your running backs. So Cooper Kupp, I think, is a fine top 5 pick next year, especially in your full point PPR leagues. Or this year, he's just been an absolute steal at his draft position. So Cooper Kupp is number 5. Coming in at number 6, Naji Harris. And everybody is going to say the same thing about Naji last year that they were saying this year. They're going to say the offensive line is bad, the quarterback situation is bad, this team's not going to be very good. And what happened this year? He's a top 5 back right now in fantasy football. The same thing's going to happen next year for Naji. Why? Because volume is king in fantasy football. When you have a guy who's running all the routes for his team at the running back position, playing all the snaps for his team, he's also seeing all the running back touches in the backfield. That guy is a true bell cow back, and bell cow backs are very hard to find in fantasy football. So when you have one of them, you draft them high, and that's why Naji Harris will be a first-round draft pick next year. He should be a borderline top 5 pick because all of that and this team hopefully gets a tiny bit better. If this offensive line is able to not be a bottom 5 unit next year and maybe upgrade a tiny bit at the quarterback position, Naji Harris could end up as running back number 1 next year. Would not be that surprising. So Naji Harris is at number 6. Coming in at number 7 is going to be Alva Kamara. And you probably have fantasy managers out there right now who are disappointed with Alva Kamara because he's not playing right now, which may drive his draft stock down a tiny bit. And that's why I think that he's interchangeable with some of these guys. If you want to take him over some of these other guys, I mean, totally go for it. I think he's going to go right in this range. But next year, the biggest question mark is going to be who plays quarterback. Who plays quarterback for this team? Does Jameis Winston come back? Is he going to be ready in time to start the season? Do they go with Taysom Hill at quarterback? Which if they do, I really don't like that. So who is going to be the quarterback for this team is going to be the biggest question mark heading into the season. That's probably why he's going to fall in this tier right where he did last year, right in this range of, picks 4 through 8 here. He's going to be interchangeable with some of these guys. So Alva Kamara, number 7. Coming in at number 8 is going to be Christian McCaffrey. And you're probably going to have some people out there that's going to say this is too early. Other people are going to say this is too late. And with him, I think what's going to happen with Christian McCaffrey is he's going to probably start off like as a borderline second-round draft pick next year. And gradually throughout the summer, as people begin to hype up him, he's going to move into the first round and probably end up right in this range. With Christian McCaffrey, if he's able to stay healthy, once again, that's a big if, you have a running back who is the best running back in fantasy football ever on a points per game basis. All right. So you have somebody who can nearly average 30 points a game in fantasy football, but you also have a guy who could possibly play 5 games next year and be out for the season. And unfortunately, coming out of college, and I talked about this last year when I was doing my breakdown on Christian McCaffrey, is that coming out of college, one of the biggest concerns were durability issues and also the frame. He wasn't a big running back. Could he withstand a true NFL workload? And he was also banged up in college with a lot of tread off of his tires as well. Now, as he's in the pros, we're starting to see all of that come to fruition. And really, it's not a good sign for Christian McCaffrey going forward, unfortunately. And for me, I think that I'd rather let somebody else take their shot on Christian McCaffrey than take him. Kind of like Saquon this year. I'll let somebody else deal with him possibly missing some games here. And if he ends up being healthy the full season, I can totally live with that. So Christian McCaffrey is a very high risk, high reward player that will probably end up in the back half of the first round in your fantasy football drafts. The 9th overall pick, Kyrie Kill. And Kyrie Kill next season, I think that his draft stock could certainly fall if the Kansas City Chiefs do not get their offense kind of up and going here. It hasn't been that great. They've had their flashes this year, but overall, it has not been that great for Kansas City, but still Tyreek Hill is a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy football, and he's just so explosive. He has Patrick Mahomes. I think that this offense finds their footing in the second half, and if they do, which I think that they do, then Tyreek Hill will be a first-round draft pick once again, probably the second wide receiver taken off of the board. So Tyreek Hill, number 9. Coming in at number 10, Justin Jefferson. And heading into the season, he was my favorite second-year wide receiver out of these players for fantasy football. And now we are going to see what the true potential of Justin Jefferson is going to be without Adam Thielen for basically the rest of the season. You're going to experience it and enjoy it because Justin Jefferson is going to be an absolute treat. And I think as long as he continues to produce, hopefully he doesn't get hurt, anything like that, he's going to play into a first-round draft pick next year in fantasy football. So Justin Jefferson, number 10. Coming in at number 11, we have Dalvin Cook. And I think with Dalvin Cook next year, some people are going to forget the injury history as well with Dalvin Cook and just think of his name and the pedigree that he has had over the past couple of years in fantasy football, and he's going to move into the first round of the draft. Now, he could definitely be more of a second-round draft pick, early second-round draft pick, but I think as the offseason progresses, you're going to have a lot more people just go to him because it's that name, Dalvin Cook, and he's produced in the past. But for me personally, he is definitely somebody I would stay away from. The reason being, 27 years old, lengthy injury history here as well. Kind of like Christian McCaffrey, where it just does not look good for him going forward in his career. He's already at that age where running backs start to fall off. So for me, I would be going somebody else other than Dalvin Cook here, but I think the industry will be putting him right in this range. So Dalvin Cook, number 11. Coming in at number 12, Antonio Gibson. And now, yes, you could have DeAndre Swift here, but let me just explain why I have Antonio Gibson at number 12 and why I think people are going to really come around to Antonio Gibson. The reason being is you're finally seeing what Antonio Gibson's potential is without J.D. McKissic. What the potential looks like without J.D. McKissic. And there's honestly top 5 potential here with Antonio Gibson if J.D. McKissic does not get re-signed by this team next year. If J.D. McKissic is out, the sky's the limit for Antonio Gibson. And right here is an absolute steal if he goes at 12. So I think that there's a couple other players that could go in this range. DeAndre Swift is one of them, definitely. But for me, with a guy like Antonio Gibson that's going to be an absolute bell cow back and a very, very good athlete who's also really good at football, the sky's the limit for Antonio Gibson. So I think without J.D. McKissic and people seeing him without J.D. McKissic, it's going to skyrocket his value. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. Right around there, end of first round once again, second-round draft pick next year in fantasy football. So that does it. Let me know what you guys think. Maybe I'm a little bit too high on some of these guys. Maybe I'm a little bit too low. Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and have a great day.